Somewhere right now, a man is standing on a golf course he owns. He paid $5 million for it. He tells people it's an investment. His accountant has stopped returning his calls. Golf courses are one of the most emotionally purchased assets in the world. Retired CEOs buy them, celebrities buy them, guys who played twice in college and never forgot it buy them. And almost all of them find out the same thing, usually about 18 months in. A golf course is not a status symbol with a business attached. It is a business, a brutally difficult, weather-dependent, water-hungry, labor-intensive business that happens to look like a status symbol from the outside. So if you've ever driven past a perfectly manicured fairway and thought, "I want a piece of that," this video is going to walk you through exactly what that piece costs, what it actually makes, and why one of the most famous businessmen in the world has lost hundreds of millions of dollars trying to make it work. Let's start with what you're actually buying. An 18-hole golf course covers roughly 150 acres of land. That land needs to be mowed, not once a week, every single day. The greens alone get cut every morning before the first tee time. The fairways get cut every 2 to 3 days. The rough gets done weekly. You're not buying grass, you're buying a machine that eats money to stay green. A typical American golf course uses 312,000 gallons of water per day during the growing season. In arid states like Arizona, that number goes above 1 million gallons a day, per day, for grass. The nationwide average maintenance budget for an 18-hole course is just under $1 million a year. That's before you pay a single employee in the clubhouse, before you stock the pro shop, before you pour a single drink at the bar. And that $1 million is just to keep the grass alive. Now here's what most people think the business looks like. You charge green fees, you sell memberships, golfers come, they play, they spend money in the bar, revenue comes in, you take home the profit. Here is what the business actually looks like. The average well-managed public golf course generates between $1 million and $3 million in annual revenue. After maintenance, staff, insurance, equipment, utilities, and debt service, the profit margin on a good year is somewhere between 8 and 15%. Do that math. On a $2 million revenue course, you're making $160,000 to $300,000 a year before you pay yourself. And that's a good year, with good weather, with no major equipment failures, with full tee sheets. Now let's talk about what it costs to get in. Buying an existing golf course, not building one, just buying, runs anywhere from $1 million for a struggling rural course to $30 or $40 million for a premier facility in a desirable market. The biggest golf course sale in the US in a recent year was $32 million. That's the ceiling of what investors were willing to pay for the best available asset on the market. If you want to build from scratch, the numbers get uglier. Land acquisition alone can run $2 to $10 million depending on location. Course design, and you need a real designer if you want players to take it seriously, runs $500,000 to $2 million. Construction of the actual course, the earthwork, the irrigation systems, the drainage, the bunkers, the cart paths, runs another $5 to $15 million. The clubhouse, people underestimate the clubhouse, is another $2 to $5 million. Equipment. A new private club needs about $2 million in equipment just to get started. Mowers, sprayers, bunker rakes, aerifiers, all of it depreciates, all of it breaks, all of it needs replacing. Total cost to build a mid-range 18-hole course from scratch, somewhere between $10 million and $25 million. And then, this is the part that gets people, you wait. The industry average to reach profitability from a new build is 3 to 7 years. You've spent $15 million. You now have to keep spending $1 million a year just to maintain the asset, and you won't see meaningful profit for half a decade. Profitable golf courses typically sell for 6 to 8 times EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
A course making $500,000 a year in operating profit sells for $3 to $4 million, which sounds like a reasonable return on the asset until you remember how much capital you sank to generate that $500,000. The Los Angeles County assessors said it plainly: golf courses are not nearly as valuable as the public perceives them to be. He would know. He's had to fight owners about it for years.
Here's the part of the golf industry story that almost never gets told. In the 1990s, golf was booming. Tiger Woods turned professional in 1996. Suddenly, everyone wanted to play. Developers couldn't build courses fast enough. Between 1990 and 2005, the United States added thousands of new golf courses. Investors poured in. It was a gold rush with better outfits. In 2003, there were roughly 16,000 golf courses in the United States. Then, the golf boom ended, and then the 2008 financial crisis hit. And then, younger generations who had other ideas about how to spend a Saturday started playing less. By 2024, the number of courses had fallen to around 15,963. That sounds like a small drop. It isn't. Since 2006, more than 2,200 courses have permanently closed. 1 to 2% of the industry disappears every single year. The problem was structural. In a business with high fixed costs, maintenance staff, equipment leases, debt service, demand doesn't need to drop by much before the math stops working. When the number of golfers in the US fell from 31 million to fewer than 25 million after 2006, courses that were barely breaking even at full capacity suddenly couldn't fill their tee sheets. The ones that survived were either elite private clubs with wealthy memberships who weren't affected by recessions, or public courses that found creative ways to diversify. The ones in the middle, the decent suburban public courses that made up the bulk of the industry, got crushed. A golf course's product, a tee time, is 100% perishable. If today's 10 a.m. slot doesn't sell, it is gone forever. You cannot sell it tomorrow. Every empty hour on the tee sheet is pure lost revenue against fixed costs that never go away. That's a brutal operating model, and it's why 25% of all American golf courses, 1 in 4, still do not turn a profit. If you want a masterclass in how wrong golf course ownership can go, even with unlimited capital, political connections, and a brand name, look no further than Donald Trump. Trump has owned and operated golf courses since the early 1990s. He has called them the greatest courses in the world. He has given them names like Trump National and Trump International. He has claimed repeatedly that they are profitable, beautiful, and worth far more than any accountant would suggest. His tax returns told a different story. Across his 15 golf resorts, Trump reported more than $315 million in losses to the IRS over a period of years. Some of those losses were strategic. The U.S. tax code allows depreciation and expense write-offs that make profitable assets look like money losers on paper, but some of them were simply losses. His Scottish course, Turnberry, lost millions for years after he acquired it and spent heavily on renovations. His Palos Verdes course in California, which he bought after a previous owner went bankrupt when the 18th hole literally fell into the ocean, spent over a decade struggling to reach the membership numbers he had projected. He sued the city of Rancho Palos Verdes for $100 million over development restrictions. The suit went nowhere. The homes he planned to sell alongside the course moved slowly, at prices far below the 2007 peak. In 2008, Trump's own representatives approached local assessors asking for a significant tax reduction on the Palos Verdes course. On the tax rolls, it was listed at $21.8 million. Trump argued it should be worth $10 million. The man who tells the world his golf courses are the greatest in history spent years arguing to the government that they were worth half what the government thought. That is, in miniature, the story of golf course ownership.
Now, here's the part where the story gets interesting, because the people who are actually making money in the golf business are not the ones who fell in love with the sport and bought a course. They're the ones who looked at golf course land and saw something completely different. A golf course, well located, well maintained, is sitting on some of the most strategically positioned real estate in any city or suburb it occupies. It's 150 acres of flat, drained, accessible land, usually surrounded by housing that commands premium prices precisely because of the views and the open space. The real trade is simple. Buy a struggling golf course, keep it operating long enough to navigate the rezoning process, convert the land to residential or mixed-use development. The land value as housing is almost always dramatically higher than its value as a golf course. Golf course value is absolutely de minimis compared to what the value would be if it was developed into residential properties, said a national managing director at Marcus & Millichap, one of the country's largest real estate brokerage firms. This is exactly why private equity has been quietly acquiring golf courses in certain markets for years, not because they expect to become golf operators, because they expect the land underneath to eventually be worth more than the sport ever could be. The golf course is the placeholder, the development rights are the asset. And the golf industry is watching this happen in real time, courses closing not because they failed, but because the land was simply worth more without them. For every golfer who mourns a closed course, there's an investor who got exactly what they came for.
Here's the part of the golf story that nobody predicted. COVID-19 saved the industry. In the spring of 2020, as every indoor activity on Earth shut down, golf courses, outdoor, socially distanced by design, where you spend 4 hours walking around in fresh air away from other people, suddenly became one of the only things you were allowed to do. Rounds played in the US jumped by 24 million in 2020 compared to the previous year. Courses that had been limping along for a decade suddenly had waiting lists, equipment sales exploded, memberships sold out. The number of new golfers entering the sport, people who had never played before, spiked in a way the industry hadn't seen since Tiger. And this time, many of them stuck around. The rate of course closures, which had been running at 150 to 200 per year for over a decade, dropped sharply. By 2023, the industry recorded its lowest number of course closings in 20 years. The worst thing that happened to the world in a century turned out to be the best thing that happened to golf in decades, which is a sentence that tells you something about the nature of this business. Completely unpredictable, dependent on forces entirely outside the owner's control, saved by a pandemic nobody saw coming.
So, you want to buy a golf course. You'll need $5 to $25 million to get in. You'll need $1 million a year just to keep the grass alive. You'll need patience, years of it before the numbers stabilize. You'll need to pray for good weather because every rainy Saturday is pure loss against fixed costs that don't pause for clouds. If you do everything right, in a good location with smart management, after several years of grinding, you might make 10 to 15 cents on every dollar of revenue. Or you could be Trump, spending hundreds of millions of dollars, owning 15 courses, calling them the greatest in the world, and quietly arguing to the tax assessor that they're worth half what anyone thinks. The truth about golf courses is the same truth that applies to almost every business that looks glamorous from the fairway. The fantasy is the view from the 18th green on a clear morning when the course is empty and the grass is perfect and you own every blade of it. The reality is the Monday morning when your head groundskeeper calls in sick, the irrigation system has a leak in fairway 7, and you've got 40 tee times booked in the rain. Most people who buy golf courses buy the fantasy. The ones who make money sell it to them.